Good morning, this is the Breville Barista Express BES870 in black sesame. As you saw in the photos, it's a used machine with scratches around the front. So, not the greatest condition. It's mainly got paint scratching and sort of peeling on the front here, where the cup goes in and out, and a bit around the right hand side. A few light scratches on the back panel, but yeah, nothing horrible, and this can always be replaced if you wanted to. Do that. And what's important is that on the inside, this machine is like new. I've just finished the service last night. Basically, opened it up, did both cleaning and the descale cycle. Put the machine on the full pressure. Put the steam on the full pressure. Checked for leaks for either of those lines, and it was absolutely perfect. I also recalibrated the grinder by two or three numbers on the internal mechanism. So now it's gonna grind really well. And yeah, the machine is basically ready to go. The only thing remaining is to make a coffee and put it to the right settings for espresso. I'll set it up with my own beans. I'm using Aldi dark beans. So if you receive the machine and use similar beans, you won't have to mess too much with the settings. Basically, so yeah, this machine is it's almost ready to go, and yeah, I'll be testing the grinding, I'll be testing the brewing, and I'll be testing the hot water tap and steam, just to confirm that everything works for you. And of course, I'll be selling it with warranty. So if there's any issues in the warranty period, you can just bring it back to me. Right, I like to begin my, when I make a latte, I like to begin my session with, or any coffee really, by warming up the machine. So you can leave it on for 10 or 20 minutes, and it'll be warm by the end of that period. But if you're in a hurry, you want to warm it up even more, just grab your cup, lock in the handle, it's empty of course, press the double button, and that's going to give you a double quantity of water, which is about, well, it depends on what settings you have, but it's about 80 to 100 mils of hot water. You can do that once or twice. Great. Once that's done, drain the port filter. Make sure you dry it. When you grind, you don't want the port filter to be wet, so that the coffee doesn't clump. So this machine comes with a single and double baskets, port filter and tamper, and maybe more accessories, I'll have to check. But basically the double basket is the one you want to use, and this takes 18 grams of ground coffee. So I'll be using my scale here to measure the inputs and outputs. For an espresso, we usually aim for a 2-to-1 ratio in 30 seconds. So meaning, we put in 18 grams, we should be getting about 35 to 40 grams. It should be 36, but I say 35 to 40 just because espresso making is not a science. It can be a bit of variability. So let's say 40 grams of espresso output for simplicity in 30 seconds. Things that can also affect your shot are the pressure and the length of the coffee on the buttons here. We'll get into that soon. In terms of grind size, the grind size, if you don't know, grind size will affect the speed of the coffee. So think of grind size as speed of brewing. If you have a large grind size, you have a large speed of coffee extraction. If you have a small, fine grind size, it'll slow it down. So basically, the fine grind size will block the water from passing through. It'll be compacted really hard, whereas coarse, larger particles will have gaps between them, and the water will go easier through them. You don't want to use a grind size that's very large, so I'm going to start at 3, but you don't want to use something It's very large, because what would happen is that the pressure will be low, the water will just go through. The coffee shot, or the 40-gram espresso shot that we make, will probably take 10 or 15 seconds, which is way too quick for espresso and probably won't taste great. On the other extreme hand, if we grind too fine, so if we go all the way grind size 1, not recommended by the way, because I've just calibrated the grinder, don't go all the way to 1, unless you really, really have to. What might happen if you grind too fine is the coffee particles will be too fine, the pressure will be really high, and you may get little to no coffee in the cup at the end of the 30-second extraction. So that's not good either. Not good for the machine, not good for your coffee. So you want it to be a number that's just right. Also make sure to use fresh beans. If you're not using good quality beans, you'll struggle with brew pressure and brew time. You'll actually find that cheap supermarket beans will give you low pressure and low crema most of the time. So I recommend against most of them. The only brand I would recommend is Aldi. They're pretty good for the money. Pretty fresh usually, and tastes good as well, which is what matters most, really. I've spoken for so long that my scale turned off. Turn it back on, make sure it's on 0. So, grind size number 3 is what I'll be using. Grind amount is how much or how long to grind for, and the filter size is basically a function that doubles the output of the coffee ground. I don't like to use the double, I like to use the single. Yes, I am using the double basket, and don't be confused, double basket doesn't mean 2 shots, sorry. Double basket doesn't mean 2 cups, 2 different coffees, it just means a double strength. Same thing with the button here, just think of the 2-cup button as a double strength button. Although you can change these buttons to whatever you like. Anyway, grinding. I like to use the single instead of the double, just because A, it reduces the mess, and B, I can measure it halfway and check if we're on the right track. So, single, grind size number 3, 12 o'clock position. That's 7 grams. So I'll increase it by 2 clicks. Hopefully we can, that's 7.8, sorry. So hopefully the 1 or 2 clicks should give us 9 grams instead of 8. So now I just held it for a second there to manually grind. So when you hold it, it grinds for as long as you hold it. Perfect. So I've just finished my first dose. Once you have the 9 grams, the first 9 grams, lightly press it with the tamper to make way for the next dose. Okay, we may have put the amount way too high. Let's see, this looks like more than 9. Okay, 9.6. So I'll put it on the 1 o'clock position. The 1 o'clock position will probably give you around 9 grams, give or take. If you have a scale, great. Use the scale to try to fine-tune the settings, fine-tune these numbers and everything. So you can get either 9 grams per single dose, or if you want, if you have a dosing funnel like I do on my machine, a dosing funnel, you can just grind into that and flip it upside down. It's basically 0 mess, even if you use a double setting there. So I'm going to reduce this to 18 exactly. So this is what 18 grams looks like. Basically just over the top, but if you lightly press it with your finger, you'll notice that it's flush with the rim or flush with the basket edge here. Another trick I like to tell people is, so before tamping, you just want to make sure that it's flat. so that the pressures around the coffee are even all around. You can use, there's a tool that you can buy that does this, but you can easily use your hand or any other utensil to just flatten it. Another trick is, yeah, I might have to reduce the dose next time. So instead of using 18 grams, maybe use 17.5. It looks like it's just a bit too much coffee. We can still make coffee with this, but just a little bit too much. Anyhow, if you want to know if you have the correct dose, like 17 to 18 grams, have a look at the depth of the tamper. You want the silver part on the tamper to disappear. And so that's what's happening now. It's basically disappearing. If you're still seeing part of the silver part, if you're still seeing some of the silver part, then that's too much coffee. And even if after you've pressed it, it's still showing, too much coffee. If the if the tamper sinks all the way into the basket, like sort of halfway, that's obviously too little coffee, so you don't want that either. Too much coffee can put too much pressure on the mechanism here and increase your pressure unnecessarily. Too little coffee will give you watery shots and not a strong flavor. Last thing is to make sure to wipe the edges and lock it in. It's in the middle, should be fine. If you ever find it leaking from here or sliding all the way to the left as you're brewing the shot, just turn it a bit more to the right to lock it in. But it should hold pressure. I tested it in the middle position yesterday and it was fine. Okay, now we have a hot water tap. If you want to convert this espresso shot to a long black, just add some hot water. I personally like to add hot water to my cup. If I'm making tea bags, if I'm warming up warming up my cups, or if I am adding sugar to my coffee. So the little bit of hot water helps the sugar dissolve. Amazing. Okay, the last piece of the puzzle, making the coffee itself. You also have to think about the cup lengths. So these buttons are programmable, like I said. You can do them to whatever length you'd like. I'm going to recalibrate the double button for you to give you about 40 grams with this coffee, with this setup. You can still use it with different coffees. You don't have to change it with every single coffee. Just know that it'll vary by a little bit. Reason being, coffees will have different freshness, different resistance to them. So they will grind at different rates. They will brew at different rates and they will give pressure a little bit differently on the pump. So maybe if, not to confuse you, but maybe if the coffee is very old, you'll get a little bit more coffee. So if the coffee beans are a bit old, your coffee may be a little bit runnier and you'll get more coffee. If they're very fresh, you'll get less coffee because it's a lot of pressure and a lot of freshness in the beans. Anyway, to program, you press the program button, then the button itself, and then it'll make coffee, and then you stop it when you're happy with the volume. The pressure gauge should be around the grey zone, so about 10 o'clock to 1 o'clock. And it looks like it's at 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, which is perfect. We may be a bit too runny there, so that's 20 seconds. So 20-second shot. Not too bad, still drinkable, but a bit less than the 30 seconds we were aiming for. We got, that's 38 grams, 39 grams. So pretty good within our 35 to 40. 35 to 40 range that we were aiming for. This is 39 grams and that's what it looks like if you've never seen it by eye. You can, again, you always use a scale, it'll be more accurate than your eyeballing technique. But once you get used to it over time, you can just eyeball it. You don't have to use the scale every single time. Just mixing it up. So you can have this straight away. It'll be a really nice espresso. Wow, very, very nice. These beans are so good. You can also do what I'm doing. Turn this into a latte. So I'm just gonna grab some milk. So, recommended to use milk right out of the fridge. Cold milk will froth better. Awesome. Cleaning, I forgot to clean. So, grab your portafilter. Sometimes the coffee will stick up there. That tells you may have a bit too much coffee, so yeah, that's why I recommend maybe use 17 to 17.5 grams instead of the full 18. You can still make good coffee with 1 gram less, that's fine. Now I'm flushing to clean the shower screen and portafilter in one step. If you want to be extra nice to your machine, grab a tissue and wipe the shower screen. Wipe the shower screen, the seal, and the group head in general. Sometimes it has a little bit of ground coffee left, even after you flush. And yeah, you can leave the portafilter like that to dry. Not recommended to lock it in, it just puts too much pressure on that rubber seal and wears it out quickly. Next, steaming. Turn on the steamer, wait 10 or 15 seconds when you see the pressure increase on the steam side. That's basically full pressure within a few seconds. So give it another few seconds and then I'm going to turn it off. Position my jug, then turn it back on. Pretty good. Put the wand at an angle, keep the milk spinning. Give me 1 second. There we go. Yep, just blocked. That's much better. Turn it off. Turn it back on. So the wand is now at an angle to the milk, to the jug, sorry, and close to the edge of the side of the jug, but also close to the surface of the milk. So the longer you hold the wand tip close to the surface, and here, the longer you hear this paper tearing sound, this one, then I can do it again. The longer you hold that position, where it's hissing at you, the more froth you'll be giving the milk. So for a latte, maybe hold that position for 5 or 10 seconds, and then raise the jug to remove that noise. That noise is basically the wand aerating the milk, so swirling the milk, and just causing it to incorporate air into the milk and give it that fluffy texture. You don't want too much froth. So now it's too hot, I'm going to turn it off. Too hot to the touch. Basically finished. And the last thing to do is to give it a quick purge. And grab a wet towel and wipe it off straight away. Now the machine's cooling down. Within 5 seconds of stopping the wand, it'll cool down, it'll go back to espresso mode, and now it's ready to make another coffee. Awesome. You want to wipe it off straight away, otherwise if you don't wipe it off, it'll be really hard to remove after that, the milk residue I mean. And also, don't always forget to purge. If you don't purge, what might happen is the milk might block the hole, and then the next morning you turn on the steam, nothing's coming out. And what would happen, as it builds up steam pressure, it'll build up all the way back up to the steam connector, and you may have to, you may get a broken steam connector or start leaking steam onto the solenoid valves. You don't want to do that, so always make sure it's clean. We've got a lot of milk here, a lot of foam. So to break any big air bubbles, I'm just gonna knock it on the counter to break those, and then I'm swirling it up to mix it up. Make it nice and smooth. Once you have the right consistency, it should look like wet paint, if you've seen that before. Nice and smooth surface, glossy almost. Oh, that's very, very nice milk texture. It's just that I put too much milk, so now I have milk remaining in the milk jug. But yeah, that's a latte. So a very badly drawn heart. I'm sure you can do better coffees than that. Thanks for watching. Hope this video has proven helpful. If you have any questions or concerns, please don't hesitate. Hope you enjoy it for many years to come. And I will see you soon. Cheers.